For certain projects, negative future cash flows are kind of natural. Think about a mining project. You lease a land from federal government. Let's say you're doing mountaintop removal for coal. You do your mining. Once you're done, you're supposed to basically make everything the way it used to be. You know, put all the trees, vegetation, what have you. Obviously, that costs money. So let's think about this project, and let's make it 6 years. And in the 6 years, you're gonna spend $50,000, not 500. Okay? Negative 50, I'm sorry. Now, even with that, it has a positive NPV, and the IRR is actually greater than 14, greater than the cost of capital. But does it actually have a single solution? In the IRR function, technically there are two arguments. The first argument is the cash flows. Second argument is an initial guess that's optional. If you leave it blank, Excel starts with a 0. So let's start with negative 0.5. It gave me a different number. And let's try that. If my cost of capital is negative 10.07, it looks like NPV is 0 at that value. Let's actually make that even more precise. Actually, I'm gonna copy this value and paste the value in there. You get exactly 0 NPV. Alternatively, if I get this started at positive 0.5, it gives me 1443. Now, which one is the internal rate of return? Because the definition of internal rate of return is the value that makes it the discount rate that makes NPV 0. Is it negative 10 or 14? If it's negative 10, I shouldn't accept this project. If it's 14, I should accept it. That question by itself is moot because the entire concept of internal rate of return is ill-defined when you have multiple solutions to the equation. There is no internal rate of return. When this happens, the entire definition of IRR is meaningless. Hence, not very useful. In such a scenario, you would always go with NPV. Let's go back to our original one, okay? Again, if I use the different starting value, you can always go with NPV. NPV doesn't care whether future cash flows are negative or positive. But people like the idea of some sort of seeing rate of return, especially you're presenting this to the board or executives. You want to be able to tell them this is how much money we're making per dollar. Executives like that. Yeah. So is there a way to salvage the idea behind the IRR? And the answer is yes, and we will call that modified IRR or MER. There are multiple ways you can calculate the modified internal rate of return. The one that I like the most: treat future cash flows, future negative cash flows, as cost of investment That means calculate the present value of those negative cash flows and add them to the initial cost and make the future cash flow zero. For that period. So going back to this example, that $50,000 that I'm going to have to spend in year 6, the last year of the project, at 10% discount rate is worth about $28,223. What MER says, add that to the initial cost or initial cash flow and make that zero. So I'm going to do a modified cash So this is what I'm going to do. First, on these cells, I'm going to say if this cash flow is negative, make it zero. Otherwise, the cash flow itself. So let me use a slightly different color for that. As you can see, it made the year 0 cash flow 0. Okay? Year 6 cash flow 0. And let me, oops. Since this is different in nature, I'm going to make that red. On this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the present values of the years that have negative cash flow. And we have a nice little function in Excel. It's called SUMIF. Okay. And let me actually go from the function helpers. All SUMIF. The first argument is the range for which you want to do a test. It's my cash flows. They go up to 106. Okay. The second is criteria. In quotes, I'm going to do less than 0. And the last argument is the sum range. It's actually the PVs. Why do I have that? Okay, let me use a different color. Purple maybe, because it doesn't show well. This one is purple. This one is white. Can you guys see it better now? Okay. The first, what it does, it looks at the arguments, the first argument. For each row, checks if it satisfies the criteria. In this case, less than 0. If that is the case, it's going to add up the values in the column given in the third argument. That's a fancy way of saying, let me make this green.